Hello, my name is Francis Fox. This is a chat that we convert into a podcast. It's on Apple and on Spotify. So if you like what we're showing you about the other dimensions and its relevance to politics today and to what's going on today, please share. Today we're going to discuss something that we actually discovered in the previous chat, which I think was 3 days ago. Not sure. I didn't put the date on it. I could find it, but it doesn't really matter. We did this map of the United States, which I sketched through my remote viewing, which is the energies of that day, which would have been 3 or 4 days ago, which would have been 2024, which is important. The date is important. So we saw that Florida has great energy, some bad energy coming in through the Northeast, into the Northeast. Then we have a big heart with a lot of joy. This is pink. It looks like orange, but it's pink. And then there is black magic, and we looked it up, and that is Kansas. Something happened there 280 years ago, and the indigenous, the Indians, did black magic. Now, this is 280 years later. Okay, so I can say anything I want here. Nobody can stop me. That doesn't mean I'm accurate. That is why I've been watching myself when I do this on my own, not under not the government telling me to do this, which is what was the case until the 90s. So I figured if there's that black magic there, something must have happened. Well, you know what? It did. But why am I saying this? Why is what happened in Kansas 280 years ago important today? It has to do with the fact that Trump, I think, is going to move a lot of government offices out of Washington, D.C., which means somebody's going to be making a choice as to where to move them. So, for that to be really effective, you need to look into the history of the land, which is what I'm doing. So, what happened 280 years ago that somebody did black magic in Native American Indians did black magic in Kansas? What happened is this, and I'll put it so that you can look it up if you want. There was a fort built in Kansas. And it was built on indigenous land. So, settlers, military, actually, it was the French, um, built a military installation in 1944, 280 years ago. I did not know this. I didn't know anything about Kansas. I didn't even know kind of knew where Kansas was. Kansas, it turns out, is the most central part of the United States, which is, I guess, why we've seen black magic there before in other maps. I didn't take the time to look them up, but we've been running into this magic continuously, and I never looked into as to when the black magic was done. So now we know 280 years ago. And now we know why it was done, which was a response of anger having to do with the white settlers. But they weren't just white, you had the French there. You also had people from the islands. There were a lot of aliens, not illegal aliens, the people that weren't from this country, but they weren't the white folk from the East. This is 280 years later, and we are dealing with the consequences of it because today, until this is removed, the heart center of this country is closed. Now, what's so important about that? The most important energy center humans have is the heart. And in the United States, it's closed due to the fighting in Kansas. Now, Kansas has an interesting thing, and I think it's Missouri that's underneath it. and you'll see that it has a very unusual shape. The state has an unusual shape. Missouri. A lot of stuff went on there that is still affecting us today, 300 years later. So maybe we shouldn't put any important government offices there until that's taken off, which is not that difficult. What is this telling us? I've been saying for like 20 years that in the future, the same way when you buy a home, part of the disclosure has to be if there was a murder committed in that home. If any violent crime was committed there, large enough, I don't know if it's just murder, if it's something else, because people are savvy enough to know that that's going to affect the people that live there. This is affecting all the people in the United States, whether they're American or not. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this was a battle between the French, the British, white settlers, the Indians, and people that were imported in as slaves. And it was one of the places where I could be incorrect on this. So if anybody wants to correct me, not an issue. But there was an incredible battle having to do with slavery there. So that black magic is anchoring a reaction to that battle. Let me see if I have the tribe, by the way, that got displaced was noted for hospitality and their and generous treatments of visitors. Okay? The Indians supposedly destroyed what was built on top of there, which was called Fort Cava. No, what was built first was Fort Cavanial, and then it was destroyed by the natives. And now we have Fort Leavenworth. So here's the trick. Fort Leavenworth is very interesting. It's supposed to be the intellectual part of the army. So you have the intellectual, let me see if I can find, okay. It's the home of U.S. Army Combined Arms Center, CAC, a major subordinate headquarters of the U.S. Training and Doctrine Command, which has often been referred to as the intellectual center of the Army. So we have the intellectual center of the Army built on land that is cursed, which means the heart closed, because that's the heartland of the United States, which means that the Army, the intellectual center of the Army, operates with a closed heart. It has so many repercussions, the fact that we continue to do business there. How did we not notice after 280 years? Because we are such a sophisticated society. We don't believe in any of that stuff. And yet, if you buy a home, by law, if there was a murder there, you have to tell the next tenants, the next owners. People say, my God, that place is cursed. It must have been an Indian burial ground. But we're not applying it in advance. And it is my hope that the people that surround Trump will hear this information and then make it operational. And we should stop being so proud of our intellect. We have the Army establishment there referred to as the intellectual center of the Army. By the way, the program that I was in, the mind control program, was under the division of the Army, was under the Army Division of Psychological Warfare. Ah, darn. What we don't know about the other dimensions, what we don't know about karma, we spoke about Miami, and Miami being a city that's astrologically Scorpio, which everybody is like, oh my God, the person's a Scorpio. So then Miami is Scorpio, and Scorpio's come with an intention to help people resolve their karma. So what are we going to do with all of this? Are we going to listen to it? Oh, that's so fascinating. Or are we going to, as we enter the age of Aquarius, as we enter an age that has been prophesized, talked about in terms of spirituality as incredibly important, where superpowers and superhumans, etc., are going to be operational, and we're not going to be taking care of the other dimensional aspects of life? Is our self-esteem so low in this country that we can't admit to the fact that maybe we were wrong in not being more respectful of ancient teachings? But it's not just ancient teachings. The societies that we admire, Egypt, the older ancient societies that achieved certain things that we can't achieve today, we can admire them, but we can't try to copy them, because the minute we do that, we don't get any place, because the way they achieved what we cannot achieve today was, number one, they knew about magic. Remember that my mission in this incarnation is to teach you about white magic. But the place where I learned the most about the creation of reality, which is what magic is, was through witnessing, through remote viewing, black magic. So I'm teaching you about black magic, and then you need to extrapolate to your life. But I'm extrapolating it because of my background to this country and to other countries. So where are we going to build these new centers of operation for the US government? Or are we simply going to try to move away from Washington, D.C., and not really look into, we're going to look into real estate costs, convenience, transportation. Can it hold a larger population, that particular city, the people that are going to move in? Oh, that's great, but all that's the physical dimension. The physical dimension is not where reality is created. So I wanted to get back to you in terms of this, because I said that I would look it up. So we have the heartland of the United States that has black magic, which means the heart of this country and the people that live here have black magic. The theme was the rage of the indigenous. Their land was taken, and they built a military establishment, a fort there, which was within, I don't know how many years, it wasn't long, torn down. And now we have the US government, the intellectual part of the army of the US government is there, closed heart. I also felt that there's a relationship between, Kansas is the state with the second largest number of meteorites. And it's the second state having to do with tornadoes. And I felt, and I still feel, that a lot of those tornadoes have to do with those natural catastrophes have to do with trying to release and to purify this particular piece of black magic, which is so important because it keeps coming up in my remote viewing maps. Have I talked about this long enough? So the stuff that was playing out in Kansas when this happened is the stuff that's happening today, which has to do with who owns this country. In that case, it was Kansas. The French, the white settlers from the East, the Indians, the people from the islands that were imported, or the British. So now we have this issue also in this country of all these illegal aliens come in. And I'm sure that many people are saying, who's going to own this country? Not so much own the country, who's going to determine the quality and the future of this country? I strongly suggest that we get that taken care of, and that can be taken care of. So I want to show you something. Do you see my upper lip? When I was doing a chat today for Venezuela, where my group, the Mantrista movement, is working diligently on clearing the energies so that the change of government, which is on the 10th, we have a change of government here, I think the 20th, Trump will be installed as the new president. In Venezuela, it's on the 10th. Their elections were in August, and uh, the people that don't want dictatorship won. And then there was a lot of back and forth, and the United States got a little bit more involved than I would have liked. And then we're just kind of twiddling our thumbs, waiting for the change of government. But here's the trick. What do you do while you're waiting for a change of government? So what we were doing, and we've been doing since the elections were won, because we don't get involved in who wins, who doesn't win, and trying to favor one party or not favor. What our movement is about, and what I'm about, is balancing things out so that people can make the best decisions for them, which may not necessarily be what I would want for them to choose, but it's their decision, and this is a planet of free will. So we worked on purifying the energies so that there would be a graceful transition on the 10th, and darn, it feels like there might be. It felt good, the images that we were getting. But here's the trick. Let me see. You know me and my desk. So I'm going to show you what it is that we found in Venezuela today. I sketched this at 3 in the afternoon. This is Venezuela at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. These are some mountain ranges that are they're called tepuis in Venezuela. They're mountain ranges, but they're totally flat on the top, and they're supposed to be the oldest on the planet, and they're very sacred. They got activated. That was good. Green at the bottom. This is good. Rooting. This is pink. These are pink spaceships. They're hovering over Venezuela, blocking the black ones, which are the bad galactics. These are the good galactics. And then this that you're seeing here is a piece of black magic. It's when they, like when you lasso a horse or you lasso a steer to bring them down, to control them. This is like a lasso, but it ends up being like a bag, and you put a bag over something, and then you grab the handle and you pull it, and you're in control. So this is, somebody did something to control this, but it ends up right here above a port city, which is right next to Colombia, the country of Colombia. So I asked, well, what's interesting about this area that somebody would want to control it? Gold. So we have the age-old issue with Venezuela. Who's going to control their natural resources? This is supposed to be one of the richest countries in the world in terms of natural resources. So we've had this issue of foreign greed forever. And my wish for the Venezuelans is that they have free will, and they decide who they want to sell or give away their natural resources to, which has not happened. I don't know that this new government is going to be any worse than the old government. We have no idea. But at least free will is apparently playing out. So this is a port city where there's a lot of gold and other minerals. And did you know that the movie Star Wars, in the movie Star Wars, when they go to other planets and other places, and they're desolate, but there's ships there and there's beings there, they're there mining minerals. So you can say, Francis, but that's just a movie. Yeah, it is just a movie. Like The Matrix was just a movie. But it turns out we have those implants that are in the movie Matrix. Turns out the science fiction movies are now turning out to be accurate, like The Blob. In Venezuela, the road between Caracas, the capital, and the airport has an energy that's like the blob. It's like this gooey stuff, 2,000 deaths, and the government can't get rid of it. The one thing that keeps it kind of subdued for a little while is limestone, because spirits don't like the element of earth, and limestone is very much the earth element. So where am I going with all of this? Where I'm going with all of this is we're running around arguing, killing people, passing laws about physical dimensional stuff, but that's not where power is. And that's not where you can get the biggest changes. So how about if we become a sophisticated civilization that is openly metaphysical? Because you see all of this stuff, there's people in the government that know about stuff like this. as much detail as I have? No, they use people like me to get details, but they weren't looking for the heart center of the United States and what's going on with it, because that's not the kind of stuff they look for. They look for what can take other people down. I'm looking for what's keeping us down, which is not necessarily people, but stuff that happened. So how do you apply this to yourself? Well, first place, you should not purchase anything unless you understand the history. Like when people buy a home or they move into an apartment, or when I do, I want to know who was there before and how did they do? How did they do? And I had one house I moved into, because remember, I moved a lot trying to get away from the Cuban mafia. Anyway, and I had one home I moved into. It was really very beautiful. It was really big, but I brought the monks in 5 times, so it kind of worked. It ended up being kind of like a monastery for the monks and for me. And it turned out that the people that lived there previously were well-to-do. It was a very nice house, but they had done a lot. Somebody had done a lot of black magic on them. There was a lot of cobwebs. Cobwebs many times indicate black magic. It's like letting you know there was a lot of cobwebs. So I spent a lot of time clearing the actual cobwebs from the big screens over the swimming pool area and other dimensionally. And I cleared so much, and I did a lot of purification of magic that was done on the family and the home. Now, at that point, I was living in the home, so I was the one that was living under that influence. And when I mentioned to the owner that I had cleared a lot and that maybe somebody kind of had interfered with their prosperity, and that I had cleared it, and that maybe their prosperity had improved, and the woman looked at me and went, "You know what? You're right. It had gone down, and now we're back up again." And she was a rather thoughtful, very intellectual person, very bright. So wherever it is that you're living or doing business at, wherever it is you're going to move, you need to figure out what went on there before, because it leaves like a fingerprint, like an energetic fingerprint. But that fingerprint ends up being like a path. It creates a path for you. And you can be on a particular path and move into a home, and your path in life changes. Today, I was able to see where one of my enemies, the one that I talk about the most, but I'm not allowed to say his name, I could see that something happened to him, and then he kind of flew through the air to that entrance of the river of Miami where they had that Lady of Miami's statue, which caught fire when I was in downtown Miami in January. And it turned out that not the sculptor, somebody had attached black magic there to kind of make Miami a city friendly to voodoo. And this enemy of mine ended up plastered against it, which I guess was symbolic for me to know that this is not going to be a city friendly to voodoo and black magic anymore, which of course was his specialty, which he used a lot in the US military. They must have been really impressed with him, being that they didn't know anything, but that he knew everything about that, in having an invisible hand in things and making things change. So why am I talking about all of this stuff? Because this country is in for a change of administration. It can be a change of consciousness. And for that to be a change that is pointed in the correct direction, we need to know what it is that we're actually dealing with. And rather than just blaming everything on aliens, which turned out were not the people that were doing the last 2 mass murder events in this last several days in the United States, we need to find out what's really going on. What is really going on? And for that, we need to find out what went on in the past. And I've said this story several times, but remember that several years ago, I walked away from my desk. And then when I got back, there was a half-page document written on my computer, and my assistant said she had not written it, nobody else had. And I understood that my masters were trying to tell me something important many years ago when I didn't have as much confidence in this kind of information. And basically what it said was, First place, Noah's Ark, throw it out the window. We all know that animals can save us from things and can let us know when bad things are going to happen. Our self-esteem is so low that we actually think that we are taking care of the animals on the planet. In the Bible, the animals were put here before us. They didn't put us on the planet to take care of the animals. They were here with their innate instinctive wisdom to help us. So anyway, that was part of the document. And the other part of the document was the memory of the Great Flood. That humans have that memory in them. It's part of our past. And humans tend not to construct reality. Humans tend to repeat what happened previously. And just today, I was looking at the readings for 2025, flipping tarot card readers, and one of them had to do with that there might be a really big tsunami, which would be a great flood. And I was thinking about that. We have the memory of the great flood in our mind. And according to my masters, we're going to repeat that unless we clear that and consciously create, rather than take the past, drag it here with the fear, and then recreate it or just reproduce it. Call it a pattern. So today's the 2nd, I think it's the 20th is when Donald gets installed, and then but Donald, as if I knew him, Trump is installed, and many changes are going to be made. So my petition is that we become spiritually sophisticated and we integrate ancient knowledge and information. So the 20th of January is like on the cusp between Capricorn, which is structure and stable and authority and paternal energies. And then Aquarius starts like on the 21st. So it's like on the cusp. So we're in between in that installation, Capricorn and Aquarius, but we're going into the age of Aquarius. So we're on a cusp, and what is said is what people that are born like on the 20th, 21st, I call them cusp babies, because they're people born between two signs and they have a very difficult life. And why do they have difficult lives? Because they're born in one sign that is male and another sign that's female. In this case, Capricorn is male and Capricorn is female and Aquarius is male. Capricorn is earth, good, grounding. Aquarius is air. The two don't go together so well. So that might be interesting for somebody who knows a lot more than I do about astrology, because I never studied astrology. Whatever astrology I do through my remote viewing. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sketch the United States right now, and then we'll go ahead and do a little bit of mantras. But we are in fascinating times, and we have choices. We have choices. We have choices. We have a new government coming in. We have choices. We're doing mantras for Venezuela to enter their golden age. Why can't we do that here also? It feels right in terms of Venezuela. It's not feeling so good here, but being it that the last two major mass murder events were not done by illegal aliens that came in over the border, maybe we should look at the root cause of what's going on. And the root cause always goes to the imbalance of the elements, which is not something that modern people look at. But I think modern is not looking so good anymore. Maybe we shouldn't be so impressed with ourselves. So what is going on in the whole planet? We have global warming, which means excess fire. What's going on in the United States? We have excess fire. How do we know we have excess fire? Who says we have excess fire? Well, anybody that knows Ayurveda or Chinese medicine, or anybody who's a shaman. Now, do those people talk about politics? Generally, they don't. That's something that I bring to the table because I was raised with people who are political, the military. So how do we know that we have excess fire? All the murders, all the violence, all the frustrations, all the unhappiness, the rise in suicides, the incredible movement on the planet, all these migrations, all these immigrants. Are their lives more miserable in the countries that they were in 50 years ago and 100 years ago? I'm not sure, but there is more fire. And when you have fire, it gives you vitality. You need to move, you need to move, you need to work this through. So everything that we have that we're dealing with that is not so wonderful, and our children, 20, 30, 40% are medicated because they have some type of what in that DSM-5 considers a mental illness. Did we all turn into bad parents? No. Do they not have what they need? They have more than what they need. They have excess fire coming from electronic equipment. So if we can identify root cause, root of what's going on, the solutions are totally different. In the first place, sound can heal and put out that fire. And I'll put in the music now, the mantrista music, the mantra music with the water, the cascading cold water, that can be incorporated into buildings. You have those loudspeakers, and you can have just the tones. You don't have to have songs, you can have tones that will balance out the frequencies of all the Wi-Fi, etc. But you have to have a change of consciousness. You have to, and it's not even, this is not new stuff, this is old stuff. This is old stuff that civilizations that accomplished more than we did have accomplished via their knowledge of the other dimensions and what goes on there and how to create reality. And you can say, yeah, but the way they lived, you want to know something? We have too much pride in the way we live. We should not be so proud of the way we live. If we have such a significant percentage of our children that are mentally ill, and if so many of us are so frustrated and unhappy, and that suicide rate is so high, and so few people want to live, why are we proud of that? Because our homes are more clean? Protestant ethic? Cleanliness is next to godliness? No. No. We're not having enough sex. If you're so hung up on cleanliness, give me a break. You're not so hung up on having sex. So we need to rethink this whole thing. And you know what? We don't have to discover that much because it has already been discovered, most of this stuff on the planet. We just need to get over our haughty, high self-esteem about being modern. And maybe we need to become more proud of being effective and having people that are happy. Because having a lot of material things, this country is an example that that's not the best thing in the world. I'm, by the way, loving how much fun this new administration is. I cried when I saw the Cybertruck that was used. And in my opinion, the thought was whoever did it, by the way, supposedly that person comes from a particular base. I don't remember what base it is. Fort Braggs, I think. They used the Cybertruck in front of Trump Towers. Now, what is that saying to you? I mean, you don't have to, I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to say somebody wants to drive a wedge between Elon and Trump. They weren't able to drive a wedge. Cybertruck saved the Trump Tower front doors. I cried and I went, thank you, Elon. But I said thank you, Elon, but I really wanted to say thank you to the universe for having something happen in such a way that we can become aware. I do not understand why anybody would buy their child a car that's not a Tesla. Why would you buy your kid a car that is not the safest on the market? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? To me, it doesn't make any sense. I told you that I told my grandson, the one that's old enough to become independent, I said, whenever you get ready to buy a car, I'm going to give you a significant amount of money towards that car, but it's got to be a Tesla. I'm sorry, but I'm not investing in something else because I'm investing in my child, which is a grandchild, not a child. So, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Where's our logic? Where are our instincts? By the way, radiation, microwave, which is what powers everything that's wireless, erases instincts. It dumbs people down instinctively. Their instincts, the thing that keeps us alive. So, okay, I'm going to sketch the United States. I've talked plenty. Let me get my pens. And I'm getting green. I'm getting orange, pink. This is good. So here we are. Today is January 2nd, 2025. Well, Kansas has a heart on around it now. So somebody, maybe it was me, we don't really know. It doesn't have black magic and now has a heart, which will probably mean, and I will have no way of knowing this, that the Air Force, the Army base that is there is going to have a change of heart in their decisions. And by the way, that particular base, let me see if I have the information. Violent guerrilla warfare between pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces. That's Kansas. Anyway, the base, the Army base that is there, has more prisons, I think, than any other. I'm not sure of the verbiage, but okay. So we have a heart in Kansas, which is great. We also have something here that is stopping those arrows here. So this is good. This is all good news. Okay. We still have a lot of great energy in Florida. And I would suggest we have certain people that have headaches trying to figure out how they're going to take down the joy that's in Florida. Because that joy is going to affect politics. And even just that Cybertruck, because honestly, I would bet money on it that the person who made the decision to get that truck and put it in front of Trump Tower wanted to put a wedge between those two men. And it got turned around. But whatever group, is having headaches over how the heck they're going to be able to get this knocked down. You still have the Mayan pyramids in the Gulf of Mexico. They're still there. Oh, that's looking like this. I didn't realize that. And every once in a while, I wonder how much longer they're going to let me continue to speak. Okay, so here's what I pick up. There's an argument between the bad guys, amongst the bad guys, about doing something so massive in New York City that basically it will knock us to our knees. There's an argument, and some are saying, let's do it, and some are saying, let's wait till later. 19th of January? Oh, God. Oh, God. Is the inauguration on the 20th? Would somebody please, Savi Mantrita, when is the inauguration? What date? Because they're arguing about this having to do with the 19th of January. So I suspect that the 20th is when the inauguration is. Having to do with a huge destructive event in New York City. I just built a pyramid under the date of today. Okay, I don't want to get information like that. On the other hand, it is on the 20th. Okay, I wasn't 100% sure. But it's the 19th that they're considering, and they're arguing about it. And somebody is saying, no, that's too big. We're disrupting everything. We don't want to disrupt everything. We want to disrupt enough, but not too much. That's too much. They're arguing. So what does that mean? I wonder to what extent the shifting is, of course, they still want to kill Trump. We know that. But that doesn't go away, Savi. I wonder to what extent the taking care of the black magic in the heart, Kansas is, and every time I sketch this, and I'm going to find it for the next time, and I'll tell you the number of times and show you the maps, how many times I sketched this black magic in Kansas. I didn't know it was Kansas. I didn't know that Kansas is the center of the United States. But I wonder to what extent the fact that that black magic is gone is going to change the hearts of the people that want to take us down. Us, the United States. Interesting. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to put on the music that reduces fire, because you see those people that are planning these god-awful things have too much fire. You cannot hit, kick, punch, beat up, rape, or murder somebody unless you have too much fire. You can't. Somebody is coming at you and you take a hose and hose them down. It'll be very difficult for them to continue forward because you put out a lot of their fire. If you have a baby that's screaming and you stick them in the bathtub or a tub of water, and there's a shaman in Australia that says if you turn on the hose outside and you carry the baby and walk over the hose that is on, in other words, there's water running through it. Supposedly, I have not tried that. I haven't had any small children in my life for decades. Supposedly, the child will stop screaming. So why don't we do a visualization and visualize the people that are trying to take down the results of this election, this last election, just like Venezuela? Why don't we visualize sticking them in igloo or visualizing them underneath the water that I'm going to put in the mantra music right now by Mateo Cuaron? Just, you don't know who they are. I don't know who they are. If I knew, I wouldn't say it. But honestly, I don't know who they are. I pick up vibrations and I share them. And my intention is that we all be well. And we're not going to be well if we have another 9/11 event. And by the way, it's so interesting because there were a couple of plane crashes, and within 24 hours, they knew why the plane crashed. And it takes the United States 2 years to get a report on why there's a plane crash or a major accident. It's control of the population reaction. I mean, why are we so dumb that we continue to tolerate that? 2 years? Trump, if they tell you it's going to take 2 years for us to get this completely settled, or a year, or 6 months, no. If another country that's underdeveloped can do it within 24 hours and 48 hours, no. Well, you know, the lawsuits, to hell with the lawsuits. What happened? You're going to tell me you're going to know better 2 years after an accident that happened yesterday? Come on. So the mantra is going to be, please God, help us with our intention to miraculously reduce the fire in the United States. So I'm going to put the video on, start the mantra, and I will get the proper words up, okay? And this is the video that's on YouTube. It's free. It has the frequencies that reduces fire, which the only way you can have people considering mass murder is if they have too much fire. There is no, you cannot have anybody be a murderer if they don't have extra fire. Now, they may be massively depressed. That doesn't mean they don't have excess fire. Suicide, by the way, is excess fire turned inward. You don't kill other people, you kill yourself. Okay, here we go. I have talked a lot today. I've been doing that a lot lately. Okay. Spelling errors. Okay, we will be back with more information about what's in the other dimensions that maybe we need to know moving forward. We're entering a time that can be a golden age, but the golden age does not refer to the physical dimension, so maybe we need to know more about the other dimensions, and that's what we're here for. Thank you for joining me. And please recommend us through the podcast. We're on my YouTube channel, but we're also on Spotify and Apple. Francis Fong.